blasts that lifted the pole off the ground. Footage released by the 47th Brigade captured a frame. Two FPV drones converged on a single T-90M already missing a track. Operators coordinating in a chat channel to assign angles. These FPV drones struck the engine deck in quick succession. The crew popped hatches and sprinted into the trees as secondary detonations cooked off gun rounds. Each drone carried a shaped no bigger than a soda can, yet the cumulative effect turned a $4.5 million machine into scrap in under 30 seconds. Cost sheets tell the story clearly. Ukraine builds these FPV systems for around $500 a piece, including frame, battery, camera, and explosive payload. While the T-90M rolls off the line at over $4 million, proving that low-budget swarms can gut high-price armor without risking a single soldier. Brigade logs from October 2025 record 43 confirmed vehicle kills by FPV alone in the Donetsk pocket, with 28 tagged as total losses and 15 left immobile for later salvage. Operators nicknamed the craft unmanned finishers because they end fights from safe distance. Tank crews stay buttoned up in hold-down positions, staying safe while drones do the hard work. A Bradley team watched their screen as an FPV chased a fleeing Russian crew across 200 yards of open field, diving into a shallow trench and silencing the group before they could regroup. Fiber optic cables now replace radio links on newer models, making them immune to most jamming and allowing pinpoint runs even under heavy electronic noise. Pilots train on simulators for 2 weeks, then fly real missions from shipping containers turned control stations, each shift handling up to 12 drones before battery swaps. The 47th alone fields over 200 active FPV units, rotating fresh batches daily from 3D print shops near Kharkiv. Russian forces tried countermeasures, nets over turrets, shotgun teams on rooftops, but the drones fly low and fast, skimming grass at 60 miles per hour, too quick for manual aim. One T-72 crew draped camouflage mesh, yet FPVs slipped underneath, one detonating against the belly plate and flipping the 46-ton beast onto its side. Ground troops mark wrecks with orange tape so follow-up drones avoid wasted runs, maximizing every launch. The psychological impact spreads fast. Russian radio chatter reveals crews hesitating to advance, citing those damn kamikaze bees that hunt the wounded. Ukrainian commanders now pair FPV teams with artillery spotters, calling strikes only after drones confirm no friendlies nearby. A single operator in the 82nd Brigade claimed 4 kills in one afternoon, guiding drones through broken windows of abandoned farms to reach parked MTLBS. The cost efficiency ratio stands at 1 to 8,000, $500 versus $4 million, turning defense budgets into lethal math. As smoke cleared over the latest graveyard of steel, a message rang out. Battles end not with a bang from a main gun, but with the quiet buzz of a plastic propellant sealing the fate of giants. Ukrainian troops reclaimed dozens of Russian BMPs and BTRs left nearly intact on the battlefield, hauling them back to repair yards and pressing the captured hardware into service within days to bolster their own lines. Mechanics in forward depots stripped off enemy markings, welded on fresh reactive bricks, and swapped out radios for NATO standard sets, turning former foes into frontline assets. A convoy of 3 BTR-82A wheeled carriers rolled out of a hidden workshop near Pokrovsk just 72 hours after recovery. Crews from the 82nd Brigade had found them abandoned with engines still warm, keys dangling, and only minor shrapnel dents from nearby blasts. Drone pilots had knocked out the original drivers with precise strikes on vision slits, forcing the rest to flee on foot into the night. Soldiers slapped blue and yellow tape across the hulls, loaded 30mm ammo belts, and sent the vehicles straight back into the fight against their former owners. The 82nd alone logged 3 fully operational BTR-82, as added to its roster in October 2025, each now carrying infantry squads to hotspots faster than foot marches ever could. Frontline reports list 27 Russian armored carriers and fighting vehicles seized across Donetsk since the start of the month, with 19 returned to duty after quick fixes. Welders patched hull breaches in under 6 hours, electricians rewired control panels, and gunners test-fired main cannons on nearby ranges before dawn patrols. This rapid turnaround stretched Ukrainian resources without waiting for new shipments from overseas. Captured T-62 tanks received similar treatment. Fuel tanks topped off, tracks tightened, and turrets traversed to confirm 115mm guns still cycled smoothly. The psychological blow hit Russian units hard. Radio intercepts revealed crews hesitating to advance, fearing their own machines would soon fire back under different flags. Commanders in Moscow scrambled to issue stricter retreat protocols, but the damage spread. Ukrainian propaganda units broadcast footage of captured tanks rolling past burning comrades, further eroding trust in the chain of command. Each claimed vehicle denies Russia a platform while granting Kyiv extra firepower at zero cost. Salvage teams operate under drone cover, moving at dusk with flatbed trucks and winches to drag hulks clear of minefields. One-night operation near Volnovakha pulled 4 BMP-3s in a single sweep. Engineers replaced blown optics with spares from storage and had them patrolling by morning. Fuel efficiency improved too. Russian diesel stocks left in tanks fed Ukrainian engines for weeks. The 47th Brigade now fields a mixed platoon of 2 Leopards, 1 T-64, and 3 captured MTLBS, creating flexible strike groups that confuse enemy targeting. Logistics officers calculate that every recovered carrier saves $1.2 million in replacement costs and keeps 12 soldiers in the fight longer. Russian supply officers face nightmares. Convoys hesitate to push forward, knowing abandoned gear strengthens the opponent. Intercepted orders demand crews destroy equipment before withdrawal, yet panic often leaves explosives unfired. Ukrainian sappers disarm booby traps in minutes, then tow prices away. The broader ripple reaches Moscow's war planning. Fewer platforms mean thinner reserves for future offensives. Kyiv's repair network now processes 10 vehicles weekly, with mobile workshops on truck beds following the front. Soldiers nicknamed the reborn fleet Frankenstein's Ride, a grim joke that masks pride in outsmarting a larger foe. The CSIS assessment rings true across the theater. Superior data flow and quick adaptation turn enemy losses into Ukrainian gains, shifting momentum without extra budgets. As winter looms, every salvaged hull becomes a shield against the cold and a spear for the spring. The Donetsk ambush just rewrote modern war. Tanks and drones now fight as one brain, where data calls the shots before the first shell ever leaves the barrel. Russia lost dozens of vehicles in hours, yet the real wound runs deeper. They've surrendered control of the digital battlefield, watching their own machines burn while Ukraine pulls the strings from miles away. This clash proves the new race is all about speed. Spot faster, shoot quicker, spend smarter, and you own the day. So if Ukraine has turned 500 drones into the 21st century's deadliest weapon, what's Moscow's next move? AI swarms, electronic blackout tricks, or a whole new playbook? Drop your take below. Who truly rules the fight? The side with more steel, or the one with eyes everywhere? Hit like, share with your crew, and hit subscribe to Military Force for the next frontline shot. In 2025 alone, Ukraine says it plans to deploy millions of FPV attack drones across the front, and the result is visible on the ground as destroyed shelters, broken supply routes, and scattered infantry units that barely have time to react before impact. Near Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, this shift has turned a once familiar infantry battlefield into something far more dangerous, where hiding no longer means safety and movement itself can trigger destruction within seconds. This area is no longer defined by tank duels or long artillery exchanges, but by a fast and brutal cycle where a reconnaissance drone spots a target, data is passed in real time, and an FPV drone dives straight in to finish the job. Footage from the area shows Russian soldiers hiding in houses, forests, trenches, and open fields, yet each option fails once eyes in the sky lock on. What looks like a series of short clips is actually a clear pattern, because these strikes do not aim only to kill, but to erase safe space, break supply lines, and exhaust units before they can regroup. Cheap drones now hunt individual soldiers, collapse field bunkers, and destroy vehicles that once moved freely at night. The deeper story at Pokrovsk is not about one weapon, but about control, because the side that dominates close-range airspace decides when the ground can move and when it must freeze. That reality is forcing a new question onto this war, as modern combat may no longer reward the largest force, but the one that sees first and strikes faster. Civilian houses and abandoned buildings around Pokrovsk have turned from temporary shelter into high-risk targets once drones took control of the air close to the ground. Russian soldiers moved into damaged homes and empty structures because these places once offered walls, roofs, and the hope of hiding from long-range sensors. Yet that logic collapsed as Ukrainian reconnaissance drones began to watch every street and courtyard in real time. Once a drone confirmed movement inside a building, the position stopped being a shelter and became a fixed point on a digital map, and that made it vulnerable within minutes rather than hours. FPV drones were then guided straight toward these structures, flying low and fast through broken windows or collapsing roofs, and the blast often erased both the shelter and the unit using it. The presence of constant aerial observation changed how time worked on this part of the front, since a position that looked safe in the morning could be destroyed before nightfall once it was seen from above. Real-time video links allowed Ukrainian operators to confirm targets, adjust angles, and strike with confidence, and this removed the uncertainty that once protected troops hiding among civilian structures. The destruction of these buildings carried a clear military effect, because each strike removed a firing point, a rest area, or a small command node that supported Russian movement around Pokrovsk. At the same time, it forced Ukraine into a hard trade-off, because hitting these targets also meant further damage to civilian infrastructure in an area already scarred by months of fighting. Commanders accepted that cost because leaving such shelters intact would allow Russian units to regroup, resupply, and push forward under cover that drones could already see through. This pattern shows how FPV drone warfare blurs the line between cover and exposure, since any structure that hides people also fixes their location.
Good evening, Sir Gilbert.
Walls and roofs no longer guarantee safety when a drone can pause outside, confirm activity, and then return moments later with an explosive payload. As this cycle repeated, Russian soldiers were pushed into constant movement because staying inside a known building became an invitation to be struck. That pressure drained energy, reduced coordination, and limited how long units could hold ground near populated areas. The scale of this approach matters because Ukraine has openly stated plans to field millions of FPV drones in 2025, which signals that these strikes are not rare events, but part of a sustained system designed to dominate close-range space. In Pokrovsk, civilian buildings no longer slow in advance or protect defenders, because once drones confirm they are being used, those structures quickly become targets. Fighting around houses and ruins now reflects a broader change in modern warfare, where where staying alive depends less on finding cover and more on avoiding detection under constant aerial surveillance. Russian infantry movement around Pokrovsk has turned into a dangerous gamble once drones began to dominate forests and open ground at low altitude. Units that once relied on trees, uneven terrain, and short dashes between cover now face constant exposure because reconnaissance drones watch these areas without pause and mark every change in position. In wooded zones, soldiers often move in small groups or alone to avoid detection. Yet that choice increases risk rather than reducing it, since a single moving figure is easier for a drone camera to track against a stable background. Once movement is detected, the process accelerates quickly because the same drone or a nearby operator can guide an FPV strike within moments. The critical moment often comes when a soldier leaves a dugout or tries to cross a clearing, because these short transitions create clear visual contrast that drones are trained to catch. FPV drones then follow low paths through branches or above grass, adjusting their angle as the target reacts, and this removes the chance to escape through speed or direction change. Unlike earlier fighting patterns where infantry could depend on armored support or suppressive fire to cross exposed areas, these movements now happen under a sky that responds faster than ground units can coordinate. Heavy vehicles cannot shield every patrol, and fire support cannot arrive in time when a drone strike takes seconds rather than minutes. This reality has reshaped how distance works on the battlefield, because even a short walk between positions can trigger a lethal response. Russian soldiers are often forced to freeze or retreat once they hear the sound of a drone, yet hesitation itself becomes a problem, since stopping in open terrain fixes their location. Attempts to sprint across fields rarely succeed either, because FPV drones are guided visually and can adjust course as the target changes direction. The forest, once a place to break line of sight, now limits movement options, because dense cover restricts running paths and traps individuals in predictable routes. Open ground is even harsher, since there is no vertical protection once a drone descends to strike height. These patterns show that danger does not come only from the weapon, but from the system behind it, where observation, decision, and attack are linked into one continuous action. Ukrainian units have adapted to this environment by treating movement itself as a target, not just fixed positions, and that shift turns patrol routes into potential strike zones. This approach wears down Russian infantry over time, because constant pressure forces units to move at night, split into smaller elements, or delay rotations, all of which reduce combat effectiveness. Fatigue builds as soldiers remain alert for long periods, and coordination suffers when movement must be limited to avoid detection. The absence of safe corridors also affects morale, since every step outside cover carries the risk of immediate attack. What stands out around Pokrovsk is how quickly these drone-led traps reset, because once a strike ends, surveillance resumes and waits for the next movement. There is no clear front line in this environment, only zones where motion is punished. As Ukraine continues to refine UAV tactics and integrate them across units, infantry movement in forests and open ground becomes less about maneuver and more about survival. The result is a battlefield where traditional ideas of advance and withdrawal lose meaning, and where being seen while moving can decide the outcome before a fight even begins. Field dugouts and forward ammunition caches around Pokrovsk have lost their role as safe anchors once FPV drones began striking from inside the defense rather than from the edge. Russian units built these positions to survive artillery and small arms fire, yet they now face a threat that enters through openings, vents, or weak roof sections and detonates at the point of greatest damage. FPV drones and other attack UAVs are guided with live video, which allows operators to identify entrances, confirm activity, and commit to a strike only when the target is fully exposed. This method turns the dugout from protection into a trap because the blast happens where soldiers store supplies, rest, or prepare for the next move. When a forward ammo cache is hit, the effect is immediate and severe because ammunition is not only destroyed but often ignites, causing secondary explosions that collapse the structure. The loss of stored rounds cuts off the ability to return fire and removes the option to hold ground under pressure. Units across have been seen abandoning positions shortly after such strikes, not because of direct casualties alone, but because they can no longer sustain combat without basic supplies. The tempo of battle changes at that moment, since a unit without ammunition cannot delay an advance or support nearby elements. This creates a chain reaction where neighboring positions become exposed as well, because defensive lines rely on shared logistics rather than isolated strength. The date. It's not truly so bad that the drinking water is filthy. This is a psychological infection. It's toxins makes it to reaction. To fight infection, one it's the toilet. Trust the making solution for fast relief. Toxins makes it reaction. Painful sort of relief. The danger does not stop at fixed sites, because once a cache is destroyed, replacement supplies must move forward along routes already watched by drones. Every resupply attempt becomes another opportunity for surveillance and follow-on attack, which means the problem spreads beyond the initial strike. Russian forces are then forced to adapt by splitting storage into smaller loads or moving supplies more frequently, yet both options increase movement and therefore visibility. Smaller caches reduce endurance, while frequent transport raises the chance of detection along roads and paths. This cycle shows how drone warfare targets systems instead of single targets, because the goal is to disrupt flow rather than only remove people.
Yan, si Ma'am.
Constant aerial observation also affects how commanders
Si Ma'am Les ba yan? Ma'am Les?
centralized depots near the front are no longer.
Magta-try lang ako.
Even shallow dugouts that once offered
Kung pwede nang maklik yung ano, yung binababa ko.
threat that arrives from above and inside. The pressure forces Russian units to rely on temporary positions that are used for short periods and then abandoned, reducing stability and making coordination more difficult.
Ay, hindi pa rin pwede maklik?
Less reliable, Russian units spend more time relocating,
Hindi pa rin maklik?
less time preparing, which steadily undermines overall combat readiness. This dynamic has been noted in broader assessments of
Kung alam man kung bakit hindi maklik.
where analysts have pointed out that drones are steadily reducing the value of mechanized and static defenses at the tactical level. Across, that trend is visible in real time, as supply points disappear faster than they can be rebuilt. Each destroyed dugout sends a signal to nearby units that no place near the front is beyond reach. The destruction of field shelters and ammunition stores shows how FPV drones are breaking defenses from within, turning the backbone of frontline logistics into one of its weakest points. Simple cover, like trees, bushes, and light materials, has become unreliable once attack drones took control of low-altitude space around Pakrovsk. Russian soldiers often rely on natural features and damaged walls, because these options once broke lines of sight and reduced exposure to direct fire. Yet FPV drones have stripped away that protection by approaching from angles that ground threats never could. A tree that blocks a rifle shot does not stop a camera, and a thin wall that hides heat and sound from distance cannot stop a drone that is close and confirms movement in seconds. FPV drones now move low, through branches and across uneven ground, adjusting speed and direction as the target reacts, which turns natural cover into a false promise rather than a shield. Once a drone hovers or circles briefly, the illusion of safety collapses because the operator can see shadows, shifts, and small movements that reveal a hiding place. In wooded areas near Pacross, this dynamic has trapped soldiers between limited paths and predictable exits, since dense growth restricts movement while drones track from above. Bushes that once allowed short pauses now create fixed points that draw attention, because a body crouched inside them stands out once a drone pauses to look. Buildings offer no better outcome, because broken roofs and open sides give FPV drones direct access to interior spaces where troops believe they are concealed. These attacks show that the problem is not only explosive power, but precision and patience, since drones wait until the moment of highest certainty before committing. Ground units then face a hard choice between staying still and risking detection, or moving and exposing themselves during transition. Neither option offers safety when drones can search systematically rather than react randomly. This reality forces a shift in shelter tactics, because light materials and natural cover no longer match the threat profile of modern UAVs. Units must consider protection that blocks sensors as well as fragments, which raises demands for stronger structures and better concealment methods. Near the front, such materials are scarce and slow to build, which means many positions remain vulnerable by default. As a result, troops rotate more frequently and limit time spent in any single spot. Yet that constant movement increases fatigue and coordination problems. The battlefield around Pokrovsk reflects this tension, because soldiers are seen changing locations often, but still being tracked once drones pick up a pattern. The adaptation race favors the side that controls the air, since every adjustment on the ground can be observed and countered. Reports about new tactical drones entering the war underline this trend, because both sides continue to expand reconnaissance and strike capabilities that operate beyond the reach of simple cover. Longer-range platforms extend observation, while short-range FPV systems finish the attack, creating a layered threat that leaves little room for error. In this environment, cover must do more than block bullets. It must deny detection. Without that ability, trees, bushes, and light walls only delay the outcome by moments, rather than change it. The loss of effective concealment reshapes behavior at every level, because planning now starts with avoiding observation rather than building defenses. Around Pokrovsk, this shift is visible in how positions are chosen and abandoned, with emphasis on unpredictability over permanence. The outdated belief that natural features can reliably hide troops has been replaced by a harsher lesson, because once drones control the air close to the ground, simple cover becomes a marker instead of protection. Night operations around Pokrovsk no longer provide safety once drones gain the ability to watch and strike without pause. Units once planned movement and resupply after dark because reduced visibility limited observation from the air. Yet thermal cameras and low-light sensors have erased that advantage and turned darkness into another exposure window. Reconnaissance drones now patrol routes through the night, scanning roads, fields, and tree lines for heat signatures that reveal engines, bodies, and even short stops. When a vehicle appears on these feeds, the response is fast, because operators can track its direction, speed, and destination before handing the target to an FPV strike team. Supply trucks carrying ammunition, fuel, or food are especially vulnerable since their size and heat output make them easy to detect against cooler surroundings. Motorcycles used for quick movement face a similar threat, because their speed does not offset the lack of protection once a drone commits to the attack. FPV drones approach low and adjust in real time, which allows them to strike vehicles on narrow roads where turning or hiding is impossible. A single hit often blocks the route entirely because wreckage and fire force following traffic to stop or turn back. This effect multiplies across the network, since one destroyed vehicle can delay several units that depend on the same path. As routes become dangerous, commanders try to vary timing and paths, yet drones adapt as well, because constant observation reveals new patterns quickly. Night movement then becomes a contest of endurance rather than stealth, with drones able to wait longer than crews can remain alert. The pressure on logistics has direct consequences at the front, because units without regular resupply cannot sustain fire or rotate personnel effectively. When ammunition runs low, positions that survived earlier attacks become fragile and must be abandoned sooner than planned. Fuel shortages limit vehicle support and slow evacuation of wounded soldiers, which adds to stress and reduces morale. These outcomes show that logistics is no longer a rear area function, but a frontline activity exposed to the same risks as combat units. The impact is not limited to one strike or one night, because repeated losses force changes in behavior that reduce overall efficiency. Units move less often, carry smaller loads, and accept longer gaps between resupply, all of which weaken their ability to respond to sudden pressure. Drone surveillance also affects command decisions, because large convoys become impractical, and small deliveries take more time to organize. This shift favors the side that can sustain drone operations continuously, since control of the air close to the ground translates into control of movement below. Analysts have noted that modern conflicts now see drones shaping both attack and defense around the clock, with night offering no real pause in activity. Every road becomes a potential strike zone once it is watched from above. Every delay compounds risk as units wait for safer conditions that may never come. The loss of nighttime safety removes a key planning tool.
You don't know by this bread, ah?
In this environment, logistics becomes a battle of visibility, timing, rather than distance. Those who cannot hide their movement lose the ability to support the front reliably. The fight around Pocross shows how drones have closed the last window of safety, because when night no longer protects the lines, the battlefield is secure. What the FPV drone footage from Pocross often fails to explain is the deeper strategic shift behind every strike, because these are not random hits or short moments of chaos, but part of a system that is quietly redesigning how modern war is fought. Around Pocross, drones have reshaped movement, shelter, and logistics into risks rather than advantages, turning houses into traps, forests into surveillance zones, supply routes into kill corridors, and night into just another exposed hour. FPV drones now decide when infantry can move, where units can rest, and how long positions can survive before being erased.
The next time, the next day, same thing happened.
Has become more
About the
decisive
quality of it.
or troop members.
So there's low quality, I think.
This battle is no longer about who fires the biggest guns, but about who sees first, reacts faster, and keeps pressure constant enough to deny the enemy any safe rhythm. What happens next remains uncertain, because both sides are
Nah, give to daddy.
testing new countermeasures, new drone tactics, and new ways to hide in a sky that refuses to blink.
Ma'am Les, hindi pa rin maklik.
The question is
Hindi ko alam kung paano. Bakit ganyan? Pag ako naglapag sa sarili kong live,
whether armies can regain space
hindi nagbo-blue.
first winning it in the air, just meters above.
Hindi nyo maklik. Hindi ko alam.
Yet its lessons point far beyond eastern Ukraine and toward the next phase of modern warfare. What strategy comes after a battlefield where being seen often means being finished is still unfolding? If this analysis helps clarify how drone warfare is changing real battles
Hindi ko
today,
nga alam mo paano gagawin.
share it with others
Kung ako ang nag-live, tapos ako ang maglapag, hindi nagbo-blue.
And the politics behind the fight.
Hindi ko alam. Hindi nyo maklik.
In just a few hours of brutal fighting, over 100 heavy armored vehicles from Russia got shredded or left behind in Ukraine's deadly minefields. In November 2025 alone, they suffered 46,000 troop casualties, over $3 billion in year going. Imagine that scale of destruction. A huge round of Russian tanks and APCS weapons. It matched the size of nearly 2 brigades. They charged to break through but they slammed into a battlefield. They blocked triple up first. Then swarms of assault shot everywhere. Tanks hit mines. A BCS burst into flames. Infantry jumped out and dove into enemy trenches. The whole advance stopped dead in its tracks like police fire. This battle tested more than just machines. It can get even fiercer. If Russia pulls back now, they lose a key strategic chance to push forward. If Ukraine slips up, their edge will fall to us from the skies. What broke the Russian army? One single battle, right? And with this new style of fighting, right, entire defense is taken. Stick around to find out how cheap folks are flipping the script on million-dollar things. Russian scouts rolled out in a battle tanks and armored to test Ukraine's front-line fronts. Thick fog hung low over the unfleets that morning in November, giving the Russian carrier a slit edge as it pushed past the outer defenses without a scratch. Crews inside kept their controls tight, scanning for any sign of trouble while the heavy rumble of tracks echoed in the midst. But the tank cleared the most behind that hit it on definitely last, just as flames shooting sky high. Traffic from all directions, and black smoke that choked the air out of that wall. The explosions were a quiet road to Houston Federal, with drivers slamming brakes and gunners twisting turrets in wild panic. Troops from the carrier bailed out fast, boots beating the dirt as they dashed for cover in nearby trenches, cut deep into the river. Bullets zipped overhead from Ukrainian spotters who had eyes on the chaos from thermal sights, forcing the Russians to dive low and cover the ground to dodge the incoming fire. Radios cracked with urgent calls for backup, but the men moved drones flew above, ready to dive on anything that moves too slow. They scrambled over barbed wire into the damn foxholes, parts mounting from a close call, while the carriers sat exposed from the city duck and the other ground. Artillery crews on the Ukrainian side locked in on the road right away, shells whistling through the fog, now past the scouts. The barrage picked down the vehicles one by one, with blasts ripping into enemies and treads that ground to a halt on their way to traffic. Commanders marched orders to all positions, but the fog that held the initial vigil was now trapped in the deadly conflicts of every shadow. Ukrainian gunners adjusted fire on the ground, using spotter reports to walk the impacts closer to the other units. The scout force rounds were full stop as more routes snapped on, leaving crews trapped in their single boxes with no way forward. Flames licked at fools, first hitting it, spreading to nearby carriers that belched woody smoke into the air. Drivers Russian engineers rate with warning style straps, but with the fast top and fire rating, options ran thin fast. Dozens of machines sat wrecked or ditched by the roadside, their crews spilling out to join the trench fight or fade back into the woods to cover the caves. Ukrainian foreign observers mark each one of the laser points with follow-up space, ensuring nothing will be attacked. The once more project scattered message for the close, desperate for soldiers. The fog lifting very much with a small process. Tanks that cost fortunes stay level. Seven halfway from Russian harbor. This opening salvo says it's every yard final front. Training has no more refuge trenches. Rifles trained on the approaches as echoes in the garage faded into tense silence. Ukrainian commanders wasted no time and pushed Bradley fighting vehicles straight to the hottest part of the line. Engines roared as the American war machines rolled through the mud. Turrets already spinning toward the Russian infantry who had jumped into the trenches minutes earlier. Soldiers inside the Bradleys headed low, while the drivers picked narrow paths between the fingers, and the 25mm chain bolts opened up with long, angry bursts that cut through the smoke-cut chainsaws. Every time a Russian soldier tried to lift his head on top of hard to shield the trench lid, the tracers slapped their foot out and forced back in. The heavy thump of the cannon echoed across the flat ground, giving the Ukrainian defenders a chance to breathe and reload. Inside the trenches, the Bradley crews worked like clockwork. One vehicle sat bolt out from the low rise, pouring steady fire over the open ground. While the other pushed closer to drop fresh suits right in the edge of the fight. The big rear doors dropped in flank. The policeman right sprinted out with his pump from the 225 wheels splashing the naked water as they slid. A shredded street woman to the Russian spotters tried to hide and throw small pieces of dancing in the chase up the line. Everything else was like a wave. Those shells burst open in the air and rained hundreds of small explosions across the road in seconds. Some bodies scattered anti-tank bombs that flipped into active mode the moment they hit the ground, turning the entire approach into a fresh death trap. Russians proved that way that pushing on her forward without pushing Russian armors that point anyway. Wave after wave of tanks and carriers charging straight into the teeth of the defense. Strikers gambled that Steve would carry them through the lines. One carrier after another rolled over bigger trucks and jumped into the air with orange fireballs that swallowed the whole hole.
The boss wow. Turn screen dirty.
Ukrainian troops launched their F-15s. The moment the bomb froze, small quadcopters started to shape charges and go on traffic vehicles like hornets. Miles away, like reaching out for all the strong side. The explosion of steel plates sent short baskets spinning away from us. A few tried to drag the newcomers with them. Arms hooked at their shoulders as they stumbled over fresh craters. The lucky ones made it to cover and slammed towards the light. Chests heaving as they listened to the telltale buzz in the head. That was not stop. Every pilots, every month, patience. One of them chases across the boat. 30 seconds, passing every 6 seconds until the man is at the end. Camera feeds from the raises came just before the speed. Another pilot flew straight from the shadow into the basement where four Russians crouched behind them. In the end, only one Russian soldier remained. He had run farther than the rest, like burning a rifle long gone. The drone circled above him like a hawk. It was on his face as his options used. Ukrainian infantry moved in slow motion, watched them off, weapons up, fingers on triggers. They cuffed the exhausted man, led him away, on top, and back into the sky. The road stayed jammed with burning steel and scattered gear. And radar machines and Russian thoughts helped them to get it. Ukrainian infantry shifted their way. Russian lines must have made Secondary explosions were over almost 10 seconds as bombs were dropped one by one, leaving a crater beginning to fall apart and scattering burning fragments across the underbrush. The unmanned carrier sat close to the site. Its mission ended for a use of guns that were already starting to shut. Not far away, Ukraine's arms were left to the fight. But the remote control platform is so far from the drone boats. It's already ready. Step by step, decoding from internal belts without ever exposing the right. Russian soldiers fired back their rifles in grenades. Yet the armored bus kept moving until the position felt quiet. With the forward armor stuck and burning. Every possible right from the light that kept the assault alive. Frontline crews shouted to the radios for all shells and fuel, but the replies came back in. Others watched the attacks drop the ball. Even used to help us out scared box. Commanders tried to reload fresh confidence, only to see them fight on screens as new drones found the each guns just as fast. The bullets had to have to show once on the supply chain. Russian troops remained active in facilitations foundation wall losses. Engineers had to defense positions from damage and reinforced protected lines. Medical personnel operated with limited supports. I had decided to accept the battlefield stretched quiet except for the occasional pop of a distant explosion or another drone found on a soft target. Ukraine's cheap robots that reached far within the spearhead and sliced the arteries of Bethlehem. The big push lost its breath, and everyone on the Russian side felt the cold truth settling. Ukrainian leopard tanks and artillery units kept up their relentless pressure on a few Russian vehicles that dodged the Russian. Tracks ground against the ground as surviving drivers cleared off the main path hunting for gas. Leopard crews perched in pulled down positions miles back and adjusted their long barrels to slow tail, sending high explosive charges all the way after the each hit shook the earth of first carriers on their sides, using underbellies to follow those shots. Russian navigators searched for remote jets while trying to plot safe routes and routes. Yet every detour led straight into fresh traps or broken sights on the wings. One Russian armored aircraft flew back striking a leopard shell and erupted in a ball of fire that blocked the channel 5 months like barrier. Ukrainian spotters relayed the scene back to their batteries, and shells soon fell like rain from Russian and the machine that caused the immediate fire from the guns and guns. A tank tried to shut the burning left side, but an FPV accepted low and struck the explosive. Strapping to a stretcher while others climbed up and slammed into the shell. positioning motor back with the tires spinning on the spot. Turning smoothly to lay down suppressive fire that heads down the bar. Ukrainian fighters inside off-road ready to check weapons. Grateful for the big one that struck off small bombs. Broken only by distant bumps. Ukrainian lines held firm, and fields stayed there, twisted steep, that no one dared approach until nightfall. This battle shows more than just Russian feat. It highlights how our people is taken.
Ah? Hmm. Which countries will adapt fastest to robotic and smart? The ones that do, they boldly manage the conflicts to come. If this analysis shocked or surprised you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Military Force for more insights into modern combat. Maybe also explore our change. What happens next when we run attack? In just a few minutes of fighting near eastern Cross, Russian forces lost 2 T-90M tanks and 2 EMP armored vehicles, along with an anti-tank Hornet team. What shocked many observers is that Ukraine did not lose a single tank in that exchange. The battle happened under heavy electronic warfare conditions where radio signals were almost useless, and drones with optical fibers became the only reliable eyes in the sky. This moment is now raising serious questions about the future of modern warfare, because for the first time, high-tech Western tanks, such as the Leopard 2A6 and the M.
Thank you guys for watching.